They can't get away with this. That is the message being sent to teen thugs who terrorised shoppers at the weekend armed with machetes. Today we learned those arrested are all known gang members and known to police. As Victoria now moves to ban the large knives, families want to know, is it enough to keep them safe?
Thinking about the Sydney attack from previously and not knowing what's happening.
It was definitely probably the length of my arm.
Sunday afternoon at Melbourne's busy Northland shopping centre. You're watching security vision from a gelato shop that's about to find itself at the centre of a wild brawl. Hooded assailants storm in as shoppers begin to retreat. One brave bystander places a thug in a headlock as another onlooker scoops up a machete, hiding it behind the shop counter. An injured gang member is brought to safety as shoppers use paper towel to wrap another assailant's arm.
What the f is happening? What the f?
Shoppers across the centre run for their lives.
Where's my son? Where is he?
Hiding inside stores like EB Games, where Bronte was working.
When I was ushering people in, someone pointed out to me that there was a machete right next to the store. So I told my co-worker to hold the fort while I went to grab a security guy.
As shoppers barricaded themselves inside, 28-year-old Bronte bravely helped remove the weapon.
He picks up the machete, asked me if I have a bag. I was like, yeah, we got bags in the store. He comes into the store. I try and staple it closed because it didn't really fully cover over the handle.
Police eventually escorted terrified shoppers from the store.
Very much try to focus on making sure everyone was safe, calm, and okay. Luckily, I had bought some chocolate treats from Reject Shop and I was sharing. Usually we're not allowed to share food, but I was trying to share that around.
I didn't know anything was happening till my partner texted me and said we're safe inside a shop, but there's people running and people are saying that someone's got a knife.
Joe's 6-year-old Ruth was shopping for new school shoes with her dad when they took cover inside Cotton On.
They didn't come home for hours. It was a bit scary, and the shop people inside did a great job of distracting all the kids. They put Bluey on for them to watch.
Stacey was also caught in the commotion.
We could hear helicopters. It was quite scary. We were in there for probably over half an hour, and then eventually they came over the warning system to evacuate, and we all had to leave the back of the shop.
Unfortunately, crime and theft has been more and more common at Northlands, some people in the community even call it knife lands.
Here in Victoria, machetes were due to be banned from September, something that's now been put firmly in the spotlight following yesterday's disturbing incident.
It's the delay on the machete ban. I know it's been legislated. I know it's starting in September. Well, why don't we start it earlier? Why the delay?
Well, there's no delay.
Well,
there is no delay. We announced, based on the advice from Victoria Police.
This was Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen on 3AW radio last week. Today, she changed her tune.
Effective immediately, we'll be bringing in place a ban on the sale of machetes here in Victoria.
While machetes will now be illegal to sell from Wednesday, the ban on possessing them will still come into effect in September as originally planned.
And we're doing this today as quickly as possible because we must never let the places where we gather, the places where families come together to meet, to shop, to enjoy the peace of their weekend, become the places we fear.
While police say the attack was a planned fight between rival youth gangs, shoppers today remained on edge.
It's disgraceful. And there are no words actually. I checked in with some of the people I know, just to see how they're doing, and they're pretty shaken, some of them.
You see it in other places, but we weren't expecting it to be something that we were going to get in our local shopping centre.
I'm just super proud of the community. Everyone really focused on helping each other, staying calm, looking out for each other. I'm really proud of people doing that.
We asked the Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen for an interview. She declined. Joining me is the state's opposition leader, Brad Batten. Really nice to see you, Brad. Any idea why the Premier wasn't keen to discuss this with us?
Yeah, I think for the Premier wanting to come out and act tough today, I think it's disappointing. She now doesn't want to speak to media, considering that the changes she's making aren't going to have the impact that she hoped for, and it's something that she can't hide. This should have been introduced a couple of years ago when we introduced this legislation in the Victorian Parliament, and the government said it was nothing but a political stunt.
So banning the sale of machetes, as you've just pointed out, it's something you've been pushing for some time. Will it fix the problem?
No, it's not just this. It's a whole range of things you have to do. But the first thing is we've got to get them off the shelf so you can get them away from sale. The second part is by making it a prohibited weapon. It's higher penalties. And the third one is you've got to change the justice system. So these young offenders, violent offenders, don't continuously get bail. Like we've seen, many of these kids were on bail at the time this happened. And now we're seeing the consequences of that. So we would introduce that if you break bail in Victoria, you would face jail. So we can prevent these crimes happening, and that would actually keep the community safer.
I mean, it's already unlawful to take a machete into a shopping centre, and it didn't stop them Sunday.
No, it doesn't, because at the moment it's a controlled weapon. The difference from controlled and prohibited weapon, there's a lot bigger penalties, a lot more chance of you getting an incarceration going into the prison system. We want to get these young people, particularly with edged weapons, off the street as soon as possible. We can't continue to let them go and let them think they've got away with it. That's why we're seeing it now where they're so brazen. It's in the middle of a Northland shopping centre. Like, which parent's not petrified to send their kids out shopping when you see scenes like this on the news?
And can you imagine if you were there on Sunday with your kids trying to explain that trauma or deal with that trauma?
Yeah, I was watching some of your package you've had before, and one of the ones, there's a mum sitting there and there's a child in a high chair, obviously having something to eat. That's a scary thing to happen in Victoria.
See, I mean, I agree with making them harder to get, but aren't you just slapping a Band-Aid on that problem? I mean, you get rid of the machete, that's great. Do you also get rid of hammers, saws, steak knives? I mean, anything can be used as a weapon.
No, that's right. But we've obviously, in the past in Australia, we're very proud of what we did under John Howard to get rid of firearms, and we reduced the amount of shootings here in the state and across the country. This is the same thing. If you can reduce the amount of these dangerous knives, particularly these big machetes, and you can get them off the street, you're starting the process to reduce that crime. There's penalties that apply, and we're going to try and make sure that we can give you the tools to actually give yourself an opportunity rather than crime in Victoria.
OK, so tell us what those tools are, because it is not as simple, as you know, as just chucking them in jail and throwing away the key, as appealing as that is, I know, to some people. What do you do with these repeat offenders who are underage? They might be 15, 16, they might be committing these crimes, we're speaking more broadly now, while on bail. What do you do with them?
Yeah, first and foremost, we're referring to those ones that have reoffended a lot then. So my ideas would be to engage earlier. Proactive programs to engage with kids who are at highest risk. There's ways to assess who is highest at risk. Then you put them through those programs to give them the tools, whether it's back in education, giving them opportunities in work, engaging them in the TAFE system. There's so many pathways we can lead them down. But if we continue to ignore them, they're going to continue to commit these crimes. OK,
say you were voted in as Victoria's next Premier. It's not until November next year. Where's all the money going to come from for you to be able to do all of this?
It's all about priorities, and we know that we can make plenty of savings here in the state. When you've got a government that spent $48 billion in cost blowouts on infrastructure projects, just that alone on the future projects will have savings to ensure that we can deliver these programs.
I think of the trauma that would have been experienced on Sunday. If you also think back to the Bondi Junction attack, we saw some amazing acts of heroism from shoppers. But do we need to better equip our security guards?
Yeah, we've got to really consider how we deal with security in these venues, particularly shopping centres. After Bondi, we've seen, how do we ensure that when people go shopping that they are going to feel safe? Is it security? Is there other alternatives that we can? But the priority is get the 1,200 vacancies on police rosters full, get the Victoria Police back out doing foot patrols through these shopping centres, and that alone makes a massive difference in crime to prevent it in the future.
All right, well, look, we all feel for everyone who was at that shopping centre. It was so frightening, and it makes you think twice, doesn't it? Appreciate your time, Brad.
Thank you.